We are very privileged today to have with us my old friend, Kenize Mourad, who is both a journalist, has been a journalist for many years, and an author. She has many books to her credit. I'm sure you've read her description in the program. We are going to discuss today two books, one of which is a recently written one, and one is an older one. The one that is recently written is the one on Pakistan, in the land of the pure, and the one that was written in 2004 is Our Sacred Land, Voices of the Palestine-Israeli Conflict. We will be discussing both, with your permission, but for the moment, I'll let Kenize say a few words of introduction about herself and certain objections she has to how she has been described. Kenize.
Yes, hello. Well, I just wanted to say that the title of my talk, the title given to my talk, is really not right, because I'm here as a writer of these two books, and telling Tête-à-tête with an Ottoman princess is absolutely irrelevant. Even if I am an Ottoman princess, it's true, but I'm not here like that. I'm here as a writer, so I don't understand what. Anyway, this is said now.
Okay, now the first book I'm going to discuss with Kenize is, as I said, her recent book, In the Land of the Pure, which is about Pakistan. This is not Kenize's first visit to Pakistan. She's been here many times, which is how I know her. The book is a story, a novel, but
Let's wait.
kindly be seated so we can continue. Thank you. Sorry, we are getting late arrivals. This is, as you know, the Pakistani habit. But anyway, we are talking about Pakistan, this novel that she has written, which is a novel about a young woman, French journalist, who comes to Pakistan on an assignment from her paper to look into, investigate the nuclear weapons of Pakistan and whether there is a threat of them falling into extremist hands. This is not a new idea, it's been around for a while, I know, but that is the leitmotif or beginning point, if you like, of the novel. However, Kenize, and I want you to comment on this, what Kenize has done is taken us through a series of episodes and things that happen to this young woman, Anne, and what she experiences. And in the process, you have looked at Pakistani society in a very nuanced way, laying bare what I think are its layers of complexity, as well as its contradictions. So, Kenize, over to you. Am I wrong?
Absolutely right. Well, I've been coming to Pakistan since 50 years, the first time. I have family here, as my father is from Lucknow, but his sister came to Pakistan at the time of partition, and I have a lot of family in Pakistan. And I must say, I like Pakistan, and I was always very sorry to see the wrong image, the very negative image that Pakistan has in the world. You know, when I say to my friends in France, I'm going to Pakistan, when I say I go to Pakistan, they say, be careful, it's very dangerous. And I said, no. And I wanted to change the image for outsiders, change the image of Pakistan from being what they think a sort of black hole with bearded men and veiled women. Of course, there is this. This is a part of Pakistan. But I wanted to show the complexity of Pakistan with its painting galleries, literature festival, and all the other part, which is Pakistan. So the best thing for me was to do it through a journalist, because a journalist is going everywhere. So it was not artificial to see this young French journalist with preconceived idea who discovers another Pakistan. It begins, in fact, the first chapter is with the Lahore Basant Festival. And it's very beautiful. And she arrives and she thinks that to be proper, she has to wear a very closed thing, very close kurta, etc. And she sees all these good-looking Pakistani women with their little, open hair and saris, and the young girls in jeans, and all this society, very, very modern. And she's very surprised. So the whole thing also, in fact, in this book, I make her go around. She discovers the ghost schools. She discovers the fate, of course, also the fate of the minorities. She also goes at the time, she goes to Gwadar. In fact, I went to Gwadar, which was absolutely forbidden for foreigners. And I went there I had met a minister, and I told him I was doing a touristic book about Pakistan, which is, of course, a lie. And then he gave me the permission to go to Gwadar. So I went to Gwadar years ago, and I must say it was very interesting. So I described Gwadar. I described also Balochistan and the movements against the Gwadar port. And, and also in the book, there is a story, a romantic story. She, little by little, become very interested by a young Pakistani man, a man who is doing theater plays, and they finally fall in love. And at the end, let me come back to the thing. First, she's trying, of course, to know about this atomic bomb, because from France, her paper says you must find about this atomic bomb, you must find about the Talibans and these extremists who maybe can take the bomb. So she tries to enter the most, let us say, the Taliban and the extremist circles. And finally, she gets an interview from one chief of the extreme religious people. She goes there, and it's a trap. She's kidnapped. She's kidnapped, and she's going to die in jail because they think she's a spy. All journalists, for them, are spies. So she's going to die, and then finally she's saved. And, you have to read the book, so you'll see. She's saved, and there's a love story with this young Pakistani man that she finally discovers is not what she thought he is something, somebody who loves his country, but who has taken a very special way. Can you tell me more about it?
Kenize, you straddle two continents, two cultures, because of your family background. And what I found interesting about your book, your novel, was that you bring out this conundrum that Western journalists come to Pakistan, some of them with preconceived ideas, most of them without any idea of what Pakistan is about. And they don't take the time and trouble to learn about it. And very often the reports in the Western press are not very well informed, if I may so put it. But your protagonist, Anne, is an exception in that regard because she is like what I would call a ferret, you know. She is not satisfied with simple explanations or superficial appearances, and she digs deep into things. My God, the scrapes she gets into. She lands up in Gwadar, where no foreign journalist is allowed without the permission of you-know-who. And she gets caught there too, and gets shipped back to Lahore, and is about to be deported, but then is saved by the intervention of friends. And as Kenize just mentioned, she flirts with interviewing some extremist terrorist organizations precisely to follow up on her story about whether there's a danger of our nuclear weapons falling into the wrong hands. And in the process, she gets trapped, she gets imprisoned, in fact, and then is released with great difficulty. It's also a love story, because this Pakistani man she meets and befriends, and who acts as her guide and takes her all over the place, who ostensibly is a thespian, an actor, stage director, involved with the arts. But there are more things to him than meet the eye initially. And she not only falls in love with this guy, I think I can state with some confidence that as she goes deeper and deeper into Pakistani culture and society, she falls in love with Pakistan.
I wanted to say there are a lot of persons in that book who are true. I talk about Edie, and there is interviews with Edie, what he told me and how. Parveen Rahman was a great friend of mine, and she told me about her life, which she very seldom says, about her life in Bangladesh and what happened to her. And I've reported that in that book. I've written about Parveen Rahman. But some names have been changed. My publisher thought that some names should be changed. I talk about Shima Kirmani, the dancer, and I changed her name, but she's one of the important person in my book. Also about Karamat, who is also was a great trade union leader, who is also an important person in my book. In my book, there is a certain Begum, a wonderful woman, old lady, and I took from my aunt, the sister from my father, who came and settled in Pakistan, and who established a school. She was a director of Nasra School, a huge school of more than 7,000 children in Karachi. So, I took from all these people I knew very well, and I wrote this book, which is a novel in a way, but which is very much a reportage on Pakistan.
Kenize, what I found tragic was your story about Parveen Rahman, the real person, Orangi town, Karachi, where she was fighting a land mafia who were trying to take the land away from poor people and was eventually killed by them. Well-known figure.
She told me, I remember I was telling her when she was explaining me about the threat of the mafia. I said, but aren't you frightened? And she answered me, what more can they do than kill me?
That's in the book.
Was that in the book.
But what I also found very interesting, and I talked about layers earlier, and particularly through the women, how you describe the differences in culture and, social behavior. You mentioned in your remarks earlier about women wearing clothes that you don't associate, or at least the Western mind doesn't associate with Pakistan. I don't have to describe them. High society, women there, the parties, the gatherings, the behavior. She even takes us into Basant, which, as you know, is now an absent festival, particularly in Lahore. Some guys in Pindi are still flying kites and getting arrested for it, but not so in Lahore so much now. And then you also take us into the lives of the ordinary people. Peasant women, working class women. The contrast is so great, but it is a very important contribution you're making to an understanding of the complexity of our society and its differences and layers. And it's not easy or simple to define in one sentence or two sentences. It is complicated. How did you feel about that?
Yes, well, as a journalist, I've come to Pakistan and written since years and years about Pakistan, so I knew quite a lot about it. But for this book, I went everywhere. I went to these places where the children are working on marble, and where they get their lungs totally finished with the marble thing. And where when you ask them their age, of course they lie, because they're often 10 or 12 years old, because the owner of the marble small atelier prefer children, because they can, they can ask them anything they want. I mean, an adult would not accept, and they are paid much less than an adult. And so when the journalists ask them their age, they always say 16 when they're not even 12, So I talk about that. I talk about how some of them, the one, how do you say, the trade union people who want to help them are sometimes being kidnapped by the police, and you never find them again. And the money which is asked for getting back the body, or getting asked by the police, for getting back the body or getting back the person alive sometimes. So I go in all this, and among the peasants, of course, there's a chapter about a big feudal landlord, and the journalist is taken to his place, and she wants to visit the village. And he says, no, you don't need to visit the village. I will tell you all about it. And she says, no, I want to go. So he's very cross. Finally, he has to let her go. And she goes, and she sees the situation, which is appalling. Also, when I wrote the book, it was the time of one of the big flood in Pakistan, covering South Punjab and northern Sindh. And so I talk about also the refugee camps, what's happening in the refugee camps. And I mean, there's a lot. You'll see every chapter is a new point of view from from another part of life in Karachi. Oh, there is also, during the flood, there was a lot of the high society ladies were very generous. They organized, fashion show, selling beautiful dresses, very expensive, and to give for the refugees. So there was a lot of generosity, but in the same time, how would you say? I would say it. In the same time, there was after some time, everything was forbidden. For 2-3 months, everybody wants to do things. After 3 months, everything is forgotten, everything is forgotten, and everybody goes back to its own life. And the poor stay as poor.
If I may say, these kind of events where, fashion shows or other glitzy events are held, do you think it's a way for the elite to salve its conscience because it thinks it's doing something for the poor, the refugees,
No, I think there's real empathy, but the empathy is forgotten very quickly. At the moment, there is real empathy because, as I said, they had never seen what they saw on their television screen. They had never seen how people were poor because they only see beggars when they get out of the car, and the chauffeur says, "No, madam, don't give to these beggars who are richer than you. It's just comedy. They are playing a comedy." So, and also they know through their servants, but their servants are already a little privileged compared to the very poor people of Pakistan. So they had never seen. So at that time, they saw on their television screen the real poverty. And they had empathy and they were moved. But, you know, people forget very quickly.
Well, we have to sum up because we have another book to discuss. Time is a constraint. But I would say this. For a Western audience, everything that you put in this book will be, I think, a lesson and a learning experience. For me, it was so familiar. You've mentioned two friends of mine, Shima Kirmani and Karamat Ali. I can recognize so many others. So obviously, you picked real characters and put them in the book as fictional characters. They are recognizable to me. They may be recognizable to others too. But what I love about the book is the expanse of the mosaic that you have drawn. Everything from high society to low society, nuclear weapons issues to, you know, the Chinese in Gwadar and Balochistan's problems, and just about everything and anything you can think of that comes to your mind about Pakistan and which you constantly read about in the papers and hear on television. Now I'm waiting for your new book, Post-Elections. Thank you very much. The other book is not new. Kenize wrote this in 2004. Now, 2004 is a significant date because it is approximately 10, 11 years after the Oslo Accords of 93. What were the Oslo Accords? The Oslo Accords were an attempt, after it seemed that Yasser Arafat's PLO had run out of options as far as armed resistance was concerned, because in 70-71 they were turfed out of Jordan. Then in the 90s they were turfed out of Lebanon. They landed up in Tunisia. And that really brought home the problem that Arafat defined very early in their movement. He said, our problem is we don't have a base from which to operate. Most Palestinians at that point were based in Jordan, and so was the PLO and so many other groups. Unfortunately, there was a group called PFLP which didn't understand the need to restrain itself in Jordan in order to be able to maintain that base. They carried out the hijackings in 1970, called Black September now, because then the Jordanian army was unleashed on the Palestinians. And one Brigadier Ziaul Haq earned kudos for killing Palestinian refugees with Pakistani tanks. We proclaim we are a Muslim country. We stand in solidarity with the Palestinians. Okay, but let's not forget history. Let's not forget the negatives that we have contributed to the Palestinian cause. And today, when the war in Gaza has killed almost now 30,000 Palestinians, the vast majority women and children, and when I look at those pictures and hear those interviews of little children, if I was not made of stern stuff, I would cry. But what Kenize has done in this book is a very interesting exercise. We in Pakistan are used to hearing one side of the story, perhaps the Palestinian side, not so much the Israeli. What she's done is brought voices from across the divide together. And it may interest you to know that not all the Israeli voices are negative vis-a-vis the Palestinians. In fact, some of them stand up for the Palestinians in the Zionist state. Now that's an education. It tells me that human beings, you can find good human beings everywhere, across divides, in the middle of conflicts, no matter what the conflict is and how terrible it is. So these voices that, Kenize, you brought out, I think give us a very good and objective picture, not only of the negative things that we are quite accustomed to, learnt about, heard about, read about every day, but the positive side. And I want you to explain that a little, please.
No, I want to say also that this book has been written about 20 years ago, but it's very much up to date. Today is the same today. I won't say from the 7th of October, which has become horror, tragedy, but until then, the situation of the Palestinians that I describe in this book is the same. So if you want to understand about the life of the Palestinian till now, you can read this. It is, this book, I'm told, is the only one which is not writing about politics and great ideas and theory. It's a book of interviews and portraits of ordinary people. I refuse to interview Yasser Arafat for this book because I know all politicians talk. It's not interesting. Anyway, so I interviewed ordinary people. I went and I did not do as a journalist. I spent 4 months there. Before I'd gone many times, I was covering the wars and the Intifada, Palestinian Intifada. But for this book, I spent about 4 months. And when I wanted to meet, interview people, I did not go for 1 hour. I stayed 24 hours. I stayed 48 hours with them so that they open up and tell really what they think and what they feel. And this book, you know, you will cry when you read it. You see these children. One child says he was coming back from school, and he said, the soldiers enjoyed firing on me. You know, for no reason. He said I was not throwing stones, because as you know, the Israeli soldiers were shooting on children just for throwing stones, and some were killed. There is a prime minister at the time, I think it was Sharon. He said, we'll make of the Palestinian a people of crippled people. You know, so that the orders of the soldiers had the orders to shoot in the legs and to shoot in the hands. So, you know, so I show all the, and you know what, there is something also which is very interesting. Israelis are, sometimes they are doing terrible things, but legally, in a legal way. Because some of their laws are like this. You cannot have a job, you cannot have a scholarship, you can't have anything if you have not done your military service. Or in Israel, there are quite a lot of Arab Israeli. And these Arab Israeli are not supposed to do military service. They can't do. They are not allowed to do military service. They don't do. So they are not allowed to have scholarships. They are not allowed to have any jobs. They are not allowed to have anything. So, you know, also legally, Israel is doing. Also, there's another thing. To build a house in Israel, you need a permission from the government. Palestinians need, in the occupied territories, Palestinians need to get a permission to build a house. The family has become bigger and bigger. They need houses. They can't, otherwise they cannot get married. They cannot have children. So they are never given the permission, never. So they begin to build a house. And after a little time, the house being finished, tanks arrive and destroy the house. And they are told, but you have not got the permission. But the permission is never given. So they try. They say, maybe the tanks will not come. And my third chapter is about a man who has rebuilt his house 3 times with the help of some Jewish Israeli organization. Because you have Israeli organization, very few, of people who are helping the Palestinian. One of them is called Rabbis for Peace. And they're helping the Palestinian when there is a time of the olives crop. Because what the settlers do, they shoot on the Palestinian who go to cultivate their land. You know, they are very near, so they shoot to frighten them. Because there is a law also in Israel which says a land which has not been cultivated is going back to the state after 1 year, and then it is given to the colonies, to the settlers. So these rabbis for peace are helping the Palestinians as human shields to be able to reap their crop of olives. Because olive, by the way, is the only crop of the Palestinian. Why? Because there is no water. Because the colonies have been, you can see the map, have been built where there is water. And also when there is water, underground water, on the Palestinian side, the water is changed towards the Israeli colonies. So the Palestinians are without water. So Israelis say, you see, they are so lazy. They just have olives. But there is no water at all. So that's the thing. So, I also talk about the Jewish people, Israeli people. I make the portrait of an Israeli lawyer, a woman, and she is a lawyer who is helping the Palestinians. And of course, she is a devil for the Israeli society. And the Israeli called her the putana of Arafat. How would you say?
They called her the whore of Arafat.
The whore of Arafat, they called her. Even so much so that her children did not want to be seen with their mother near the school, because all the children were insulting them, telling, your mother is the whore of Arafat. And this woman, with such courage, went on, is still defending the Palestinians. So, it requires a lot of courage to do that. But I must say that I'm very sorry to say that now the Israeli society is about all of them, apart from a tiny minority behind the government, Netanyahu. And I think one of the reasons is that they are not shown the reality. They are not shown all these images that we can see on Al Jazeera. Like in Europe. In Europe, much of the television don't show much of the reality. That's why in Europe also you have quite a lot of people who say, oh, Israel has to defend itself. I mean, because they don't see also the reality. I must say that this book, I wanted it to be reprinted because it's very much, again, today it shows you. And I said, I made a new forward, and I say, Hamas action on 7th of October did not come as a slap of thunder into a clear sky, as one would like us to believe. For 70 years, since 1948, the Palestinian people, you better read it. Can you read it?
This book describes the daily life of Palestinians under merciless occupation. Constant repression, terror, arbitrary arrests, torture, mutilations. Quote unquote, we will make the Palestinians a people of cripples, promised Prime Minister Ariel Sharon, as well as the multiple assassinations of men, women, and children. But it also shows a small minority of righteous Israeli people rejecting this barbarity and trying to help the Palestinians. Written 20 years ago, this book could have been written today. However, the situation has gotten much worse since then. In the West Bank, Israeli settlements have multiplied at the expense of Palestinian lands reduced to confetti, where the population is finding it increasingly difficult to live. In Gaza, this quote-unquote open-air prison, it is complete suffocation, the goal of Israel being to make the lives of the Palestinians so abominable that they end up leaving their country, so that the dream of greater Israel from the Mediterranean to the Jordan can be fulfilled. But the Palestinians will never be subjugated by force. Each new generation will resume the fight, and more fiercely each time, as the deaths and suffering accumulate, hatred grows stronger. In this conflict, Violence and wars are useless. The only possible victory will come from real negotiations. Solutions have been put forward, listed at the end of this book, but there must be the will to refine them and more than all the courage to implement them.
I must say something. Since this book was written 20 years ago, all my other books have been boycotted. I mean, by the media, by the press. The press is very, very influenced by the Zionist ideas. And my other books were dealing about other subjects. One was about India, Hazrat Mahal. This one about Pakistan. Before I had all the televisions, all the big papers. After this book, I had nothing. So, you know, the power of the Zionist ideas in the West. You wonder why the West is not reacting more to what's happening, the horrors which are happening today. Because people are not really told what's happening. I mean, they are told a part of it, of course, but if you don't look at independent television like Al Jazeera or some others, people don't really see the abomination and the horror of what's happening today.
I would just like to say, I don't want to bore everyone and take up a lot of time with history, but I think it's important to put the issue of Palestine-Israel in context. My reading is that the Jews had to leave what is today called Israel, which was their original homeland, many moons ago, because the Roman Empire expelled them. And they scattered throughout the world, and particularly Europe, where, if you'll pardon my saying so, we have European friends sitting here, they were treated very badly. The word ghetto comes from Italian, an area in Venice, I think, or somewhere, where they were confined. And then it became a kind of repeat performance everywhere. Pogrom, the word comes from Russian. And we know the history of pogroms in Russia and elsewhere. It is not an accident, therefore, that towards the end of the 19th century, a new movement arose amongst the Jews, which we today call Zionism. It's called Zionism because Mount Zion was the original mythical home of the Jews in their homeland, traditional homeland, historical homeland. And so they sought to create a Jewish homeland back where they had come from originally. Of course, things had changed. History had moved forward. There were other people living there. Palestinians. Now, it's been argued that the interests of the West helped Zionism through Jewish immigration initially, then the guilt over the Holocaust in Nazi Germany, whose price the Palestinians have had to pay in an ironical twist, you know. They had nothing to do with it. I was on a visit to Morocco once, and in one of the cities they pointed out the Jewish quarter, where Jews lived in perfect harmony with Moroccans, but by now it was virtually empty of Jews because they'd all gone to Israel. The Muslim world is not by and large known as having treated Jews badly. And initially there was not the kind of resistance to Jewish immigration, which, you know, later transpired because suddenly the Palestinians woke up to the fact that their homeland was being inundated by increasing immigration. During the Second World War, immigration declined because the West needed Arab support in the struggle against Nazi Germany and the Axis powers. But after the Second World War, with the shadow of the Holocaust cast over entire humanity, the UN decided, okay, we need two states. And they laid down markers and, boundaries. But I'm sorry to say, successive Israeli governments, starting almost from day one, have expanded their territory beyond the UN plan and today beyond anything the UN envisaged. So the talk of Greater Israel, an expansionist state, and so on and so forth. It's unfortunate, but there's been a great missed opportunity, in my view, and that is that when the Palestinian armed resistance was pushed onto the back foot, and they couldn't function in the way they had been, either from Jordan or Lebanon, the Oslo Accords, signed between Yitzhak Rabin, Prime Minister of Israel, and Yasser Arafat, head of the PLO, at least promised, a two-state solution and peace. Because the great concession that the PLO made was the right of the Israeli state to exist. We are not going to destroy the Israeli state. We want a settlement. Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated by a young Zionist extremist. Yasser Arafat, it's my contention, was poisoned by the Israelis. So both big figures that had come together or attempted to come together were eliminated. And ever since then, whether it was Sharon or whether it is Netanyahu today, the extreme right in Israel has made any such solution virtually impossible. I don't know how you feel.
I want to say something. One talk of Hamas wanting to put Israeli to the sea. At the beginning, that was her speech. But at least 15 years ago, Hamas has accepted the existence of Israel. But it is not told anywhere. I mean, most of the papers don't refer to that. But they have accepted the existence of Israel. It's very important that, to know that.
Hamas has a very checkered history, They are accused of having been supported by Netanyahu and the Israeli government against the PLO. But today, as we know from our own experience, proxies are a difficult game to play. Sometimes at some point they go off the leash and things turn against you. The very people you supported suddenly are your enemies. Pakistan is so familiar with that. We are also familiar with missed opportunities for peace. Sorry, I'm all going off topic, but just to illustrate. Cast your mind back to 1999 to 2001. Musharraf launches the Kargil war secretly. But the same Musharraf in power in 2001, just 2 years later, goes to Agra to make peace with Vajpayee. And they came close, that close. Another missed opportunity. Missed opportunities then perpetuate the conflict. Ours is perpetuated. This one is perpetuated, the Israeli-Palestinian one.
But it's not
there are situations that don't have solutions apart from compromise.
But I don't think that missed opportunities are just by chance. I think some people want this opportunity to be missed. Not by chance. Is there any question on the...
I think we are going to throw the floor open to comments and questions. Yes, Radha.
Thank you.
Could you stand up?
Yes, thank you. I haven't read, Kenize, your book about Israel-Palestine, but have you said about something, I mean, is a one-state solution to the Palestinian problem still possible, or is a two-state solution also some light years away? One-state or two-state solution? Okay, sorry.
One-state solution possible, or is it, not possible?
To me, one-state solution is impossible because it would mean that the Palestinian would be the shoe bearer of the Israeli. So it has to be a two-state solution.
In my humble
opinion. And two-state solution means that the settlement has to be get rid of. But a friend of mine was telling me, because I was telling him it's very difficult to have 500,000 or 700,000 Israeli out of the West Bank. And she said, but she's Algerian, by the way. She said, but in Algeria, 1 million people, Algerian French, had to leave Algeria. So she said it's possible.
In my humble opinion, the obsession to create a one-state solution in favor of Israel runs the risk of unraveling of the Zionist state. I think they need to understand that. Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Sadia. I work on nuclear weapons-related issues. I focus on how states basically use discourses to normalize the possession of the bomb, of the atomic bomb. And I was struck by this phrase, and I always get struck by this phrase, which is bomb falling into the wrong hands, because it invokes an image as if there are right hands that should possess the bomb, and it kind of legitimizes the state's possession of the bomb. And I was wondering how do you sort of navigate this binary, which in my view is artificially created. So how, as a writer, you look into this issue of state versus non-state actors having the atomic bomb?
Sorry, I couldn't make out your question. Could you repeat it?
So, I was wondering, how do you navigate this binary, which in my view is clearly artificial, about like states having the bomb versus non-state actors having the bomb? Because there was this reference about your novel which talks about the bomb falling into the wrong hands. I don't know if there are any right hands that should possess the bomb, the atomic bomb.
My question is this, that what will be the solution for Palestinians, because Israel will never accept them, and they will never give their land also to them. So what should be done? There is no one state. I'm saying that you believe in two states, not in one state. But Israel will never accept Palestinians, and they will, so like this, they will keep on fighting, and there will be no solution also.
They will allow, Israel won't do anything unless they are forced to do it by the United States. That's the only way it can happen.
Yes, anyone else? Yes, please. One sec.
I'd like to know a little bit about your own background, about your being an Ottoman princess.
Well, my mother was the granddaughter of Sultan Murad of Turkey. Sultan Murad was one of the last of this line of, during 6 centuries and half, the same family has ruled over Ottoman Empire. So, and as you know, the family was thrown out into exile in 1923 because, they lost the war, and Mustafa Kemal did win, and we are grateful to Mustafa Kemal not to have thrown us out, but to have saved the country, because Turkey itself, not the empire, Turkey itself was to be shared between all the powers who won the war. So the family was exiled. They went to different places. My grandmother was a daughter of the Sultan, Hatice Sultan, she was called, went to Lebanon, to Beirut. But they were exiled without any money. So they had a very difficult life there. So when my mother became of age, she was a very beautiful young woman, one had to find a husband for her. And there were two reservoirs of people for these young princesses. It was the Egyptian princess and the Indian princess, because they were Muslims, princes, and had money. So as two cousins of my mother were married to the 2 princes of Hyderabad, my mother was married to a much less rich and less important prince. He was the Raja of Kotwara, but at least he was good-looking, intelligent, progressive, when the little Hyderabadi were like little monkeys. Say it, Etsu. So my mother was lucky in that sense. It was not a huge fortune, but anyway. But then when she was pregnant with me, she was a little frightened because Lucknow was very, very traditional. And she was a little frightened to have her baby in Lucknow. So she asked to go to Paris to deliver the child. And she was sent to Paris by my father with a faithful old eunuch. You know what's a eunuch? Who had followed from Turkey. And then my father was to join her at the time of deliverance. But he could not because the war broke on. And and my mother, 1 year after my death, she died in Paris. And the thing is, which is interesting, that after the war, my father asked me back. He sent 2 women to take me, but I had been put in a Catholic nuns school. And the nuns did not hid me. They hid me, sent me to the countryside. Why? They did not want to give this little girl, nice little girl, to a Muslim father. So, because of prejudice, total prejudice against Islam, my life has been totally changed. Maybe for good, I don't know, but totally changed without my wanting it. So I stayed in France till the age of 21. When I was 21, which was the age of majority, now it's 18, it was 21, I could go to India for the first time and meet my father. That's the thing.
Excuse me, just let me add something that may be of interest to you. Yes, there is royal lineage on both sides, but Kenize hates to be called an Ottoman princess, as she has been called in the program. She is not an Ottoman princess. But it's ironic that in the novel she's written about Pakistan, the journalist is in a situation where they say she's from royal lineage, she's from the Turkish Ottoman Caliph, connected with the Turkish.
But this is a trick she
Caliph.
takes.
So it's ironic that she put it in there as, something, a deception that was practiced in order for her to get in with some terrorists, etc. And here is Kenize being now described as an Ottoman princess herself. Ironies. Yes, please. Anyone? Yes. Thank you.
You wrote a book. I think I read that. It was written by you. It's about Salam from a Dead Princess. It was all about your mother and you growing up in Paris.
I don't follow.
Your mother's name was Princess Salma.
Yes.
Yeah. So in that book you described all your childhood, because I read that book many years back, and it really did interest me. And when I found out you were coming, I did want to come and hear you out.
Did you follow?
Sorry, can you repeat a
This
little louder?
micro is so bad,
There's too much noise, we can't hear.
and there's motor noise. I will tell you when we are. Okay, I think it's finished.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Kenize. The rest you can discuss informally. Thank you very much.